here at the North Bank Linear Park on the East End of Ventura, and in today's video we're going to talk about the pros and the cons of living on the East End. By the way, my name is Leichtfuss. If this is your first time to the channel, make sure that you subscribe so that you can be the first to learn about any changes to the Ventura real estate market. And if you're thinking about buying or selling, whether it's in 9 days or 9 months, feel free to give me a call, send me a text. All that information is down below in the subscription box. So let's start out by kind of defining where the East End is. The East End is loosely defined as anything really east of Johnson Drive. Johnson Drive is one of the main exits off the 101 freeway, all the way out to the city limits, and it is bordered by Foothill Road on the north and the Santa Clara River on the south. And some of the housing supply that you're going to find over here on the East End of Ventura is kind of really built from the 1960s until now. There's some new homes that are being built and sold currently in a new development, which we'll talk about in a little bit. The homes that were built in the 60s, 70s, and 80s are typically sited on larger lots. We're talking 5,500 square foot lots and bigger. That's relevant because if you are somebody that likes to entertain with your family, have them come over, for a summer evening, or you just want your kids to run around in a big grassy lawn in your backyard, or even if you need a pool, either an existing pool or you want to have space to build a pool and put your own pool into, the East End, specifically those homes built in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, are going to be your best bet. Now, there are plenty of homes over here that are built in the 1990s and later. Those homes are typically going to be built on smaller lots. I'm talking under 5,500 square feet. They will have smaller backyards, and in fact, sometimes they'll have no backyards at all, or no side yards rather. But there are some trade-offs, of course. So those homes that are built in the 90s and the 2000s and newer, those are going to have features such as dual pane windows, central air conditioning, and more spacious modern floor plans. So certainly some trade-offs. Now, the East End is going to give you more bang for your buck. So your dollars are going to stretch a little bit further than, say, parts of Midtown or downtown. You can still find a single-story, 1,200 square foot starter home, probably a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, somewhere in the $600,000 range. And I'll put up on the screen here just an example of a recent sale that kind of fits that description. And then prices can go up from there, all the way up to 1.7 or 1.8 million. That's going to be for, let's say, a 5-bedroom home, probably 3,500 square feet on a 10,000 plus square foot lot. Now, if you prefer new construction, you're also going to be probably looking out here on the East End. So as mentioned, there is that new construction community called Del Sol that's currently being built and sold. At the Del Sol, there is the Primero floor plans, and those are attached townhomes. They're in that 1,400 to 1,800 square feet range, and they start in the $700,000 price mark. And then they have the Novato and the Fresco, and those are detached single-family homes that will range up to 3,500 square feet, and those prices actually start in the $900,000 range. Now, the Del Sol is an HOA community. They do have some pretty nice amenities, though, with that HOA payment. They do have a rec center. They also have a pool and a jacuzzi for the community, and they also have what my understanding is 5 parks and then walking trails, paved walking trails kind of throughout the community. So you are paying that HOA, but you are getting some amenities with that trade-off. Okay, so before we jump into the pros and cons, the last thing that I want to touch on is the schools. So over on the East End, we do have 4 elementary schools. That is Citrus Glen, Sarah, Juana Maria, and Atlas. And then if you have middle school age kids, they're going to feed over to Balboa, and high school is going to feed over to Buena. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into some of the pros and cons. And for that, we're going to go cruise over to one of our premier parks over here on the East End. All right, so let's get into some of the pros and cons. The first pro is got to be the weather. Now, we are living in Southern California in a coastal beach town, so the weather is going to be pretty darn good year-round, right? Well, we have this natural phenomena called June gloom and May gray. That's where during the springtime you see a lot more overcast and marine layer. the closer you get to the beach. Now, being on the East End, you don't have as much of that effect going on. In fact, that June gloom or May gray typically burns off around 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, meaning that you have more hours of daylight over here on the East End as compared to parts of town that are closer to the beach. Now, the first con that I want to talk about is the distance that the East End is from the rest of town. Now, to get to the 101 freeway, for example, it's going to take you a little bit longer. So if you're commuting to the Conejo Valley, let's say you work at Amgen, it's going to be a little bit of a longer trek to get even to the 101 before you really start your proper commute. If you are a Trader Joe's family like mine, it's going to be a longer drive to get to Trader Joe's or other major grocery stores, and we don't really have many restaurants over here on the East End of town. Now, we do have the original location for Simone's Coffee, which is fantastic. In fact, it's not far from where we are here right now. But that's one of the major concerns about living on the East End, is that you just have to drive a little bit farther to get to where you want to be. Now, the second pro that I want to talk about is Harmon Canyon. This is a 2,000-acre preserve that was established in 2020 by the Ventura Land Trust. There are miles and miles of scenic hiking, biking, and walking paths, and it really is kind of a special gem over here on the East End of town. The second con that I want to talk about is that while it is warmer over here on the East End of town, one thing you have to look out for is a lot of those homes that were built in the 60s, 70s, and 80s were built without air conditioning. So if you're shopping for a home like that over here on the East End, I would certainly look into, does the home have central air? And if it doesn't, make sure that you're budgeting to add it. The third and final pro that I want to mention are the parks. Now, we have many great parks all across the city of Ventura, but the three that I want to highlight over here on the East End are truly special. The first one is Hunsinger Park. There are many soccer fields and baseball fields, and it's a great gathering place for families on the weekends if their kids are in youth sports. The second one is Juana Maria Park. They do have bathrooms at Juana Maria, as well as basketball, tennis, and pickleball courts. So if you're a pickleball fan, I would go onto Facebook and check out Ventura Pickleball. They do meet regularly over at Juana Maria Park, and it's a great way to meet new people and socialize with other locals. And the third park that I want to talk about is the one that we're actually standing in right now. This is the Ventura Community Park. There are softball fields, soccer fields, bathrooms, nearly 1.5 miles of paved walking paths throughout the park, as well as the Ventura Aquatic Center, which features a competition swimming pool, water park, which is great for the kids. I like to bring my family down here on the weekends during the summer. So this is truly a really special place here in Ventura. Now, the third and final con that I want to talk about, not to leave it on a sour note, is the walkability of the East End. So as mentioned, you really kind of have to jump in your car to drive to the places that you want to be. If you're hoping to just walk out your front door and walk to the local brewery, that's not really going to happen on the East End. You will have to take your car and go towards Midtown or downtown in order to be able to find those types of restaurants and establishments. That's it for today's video. If you learned something, let me know. I'd love to hear about it. Put it in the comments down below. I look forward to seeing you on the next video. The second con that I want to talk about, what is the second con? What's the third and final con?
Walkability?
Oh yeah, that sucked the last way I did it.